Shall we start now?
Yeah.
So let's look at participants in the business process design. The everyday functioning of a business process affects multiple stakeholder groups. So input from each group should be considered in the design of the process. However, some stakeholders will be more active participants. So some may be very active in the business process design. So end users are generally the drivers of new or redesigned process. So end users are there. So there are people who, stakeholders who will be more active in the process design. So the stakeholders are more active in the process design. And then the end users who are really using this one. And they also drives the new redesign process. For example, the customer of a multi-divisional business may have open accounts with several of these divisions. Whenever customer calls, the customer relations department would like the most up-to-date customer balance information for all divisions to be accessible at once. So if it is multi-division business, if you have that, when you call the customer relationship officer, he may be able to access all this data about the customer. Although the motivation of the new process begins with the customer service department, personnel in various divisions as well as the central IT function will be affected. So this is what the end users generally drive the process design. So because IT pervades every aspect of operation in a modern organization, the IT steering committee must study each request for new process and either approve or deny. So in the organization, you have to have IT steering committee. And they should either approve or deny that each process, new process. So typically members of the steering committee include the CIO, Chief Information Officer, and the head of the system development from the IT division. So the steering committee normally include CIO, then head of system development in the IT department, and the executive management from each division also represented in a steering committee. The committee members have an understanding of the interaction of the organizational current systems and how they will affect and be affected, and how they will affect and be affected by new redesigned business process. So they know what will be the impact of this new redesigned business process on the current system. Either will be affect or will be affected. So how they will affect or how they will be affected also in this new process. So once the new process or the system has been approved, the project team is assembled, consisting of representative of the end users who requested it, and the IT personnel who will design and build the software component that will support it. Now, if the end users comes and say, okay, now let's say if it is an insurance company, the digital head of digital might say, okay, our sales team find it very difficult, to get the new clients of life insurance. So many documents are there. They get it filled from the client and, WhatsApp to us. We have to enter everything. So why not we deploy or publish those applications so that the customer can fill it in front of the officer or without that and submit it so that we can automate that process. So, but if such a decision to be taken, that IT steering committee, has the end users who request it, which department requested this request coming from, and then whether this can be designed and what software component will support this new process. All this has to be evaluated. So upper management support process design by making sufficient resources available to ensure successful implementation of the new process. The top management should support successful implementation of the new process. So if a new process or system crosses organizational boundaries. Now, if the new process need to connect into suppliers, so that means it crosses the organizational boundaries. Like, for example, it goes to suppliers. In case of EDI, electronic data interchange, we know that we connect it to supplier ERP systems. Electronically, we send the documents. Then external parties such as representative of the vendors or the customer business are participated. So in such a situation, the vendors, if it is a suppliers, are called vendors, or customer businesses are to be participated in such a decision, because this information we go across the organizational boundaries. Now, such a system is like, let's say, if the bank wants to integrate customs, we can't directly integrate it to customs, what do you call, customs services. Sri Lanka customs use Asikuda system, software system. Now you can't go and directly integrate into Asikuda system by the bank and say, okay, now we can fill that customer declaration from here. So the people who open LCs, and trying to clear the goods, they can come to the bank and, we can fill that, because direct integration for Sri Lanka custom is not possible. So what they have done is, here you have the Sri Lanka custom, and they use Sikuda. I can't see Kuda system, and that is connected to Lanka Pay. That's Lanka Clear, and now that can be connected to the bank. So the bank can now connect to the Lanka Pay. That's called LPOP service. Through the LPOP service, you can connect it to Sri Lanka customs, and the bank counters can see the custom. So they can fill up custom. Earlier, the custom, you had to bring it from Sri Lanka custom, and type it and give it to the bank, and then the bank give the pay order to clear the goods. Now that money can be transferred directly to customs, and the clearing process will be faster. The same way other government institute like tax department, BOI, all that is connected through now LPOS. Many institutions will come. So that's called a typically EDI network, electronic data interchange. Business documents go across EDI protocol. So you must be doing in your banks also having LPOS if you are supporting corporate banking. So when it comes to application, you have to decide whether you are going to build or buy. So you're going to design the application or develop the application by your IT team, or you're going to buy from outside vendor. So when an organization acquire a new system by purchasing from outside vendor, the contract management personnel oversees the process. The future end users of the systems as well as IT personnel also will involved drawing up specification and requirement. So if they wanted to build by internally, then their internal team will do it, IS department, information system. But if they have to buy it from outside vendor, then you probably make a request for proposal, RFP. And in that, you have that technical specifications, all technical requirements are mentioned. And then you publish that RFP. And then for that RFP, if outside vendors are bidding. Why you publish a RFP? Because different vendors has different solution that you have no benchmark, and you don't know whether it supports your requirements. So specification, requirement specification, request for proposal will have a technical specification sheet. So that you have to comply, and the vendor has to respond whether he comply, not. And I mean, you can mention that in the RFP or specification, whether it's a compulsory one or optional. So then you might say compulsory one, either you have to comply or you have to say a workaround how to come. So then the vendor responds whether it is complied or what is the workaround. So based on that, you give marks, you evaluate, you ask them to demonstrate, and then you make the decision of buying. However, when a new system is to be created in-house, planning and managing the development process is one of the IT function most important tasks. So the most important task in the IT department is, if it is developing in-house within that organization, how to plan and manage in the development process. The need of the end user must be balanced with budgets and the time constraint. Now, you might take it internal development, but it takes ages, but then you can't balance the end user. End user may say, oh, no problem. You might take a decision, okay, we will develop an anti-money laundering system by us. But then the compliance system say how long it will take. They said, no, we can't wait for such time. Let's go and buy it. The decision to use the existing hardware or purchase of a new platform must be weighted. So in that way, we evaluate whether how much time it takes to build versus buy. Any questions up to now? Is this clear or not clear? I can explain further if you want.
Yeah.
So extensive time and resources are devoted to the creation of new application. And generally, the more important the business function being automated, more complex the application is. Thus, having a well-governed methodology for overseeing the development process is vital and could lead to the development of a killer application. So you can develop a killer application, more complex application with development. So what is a killer application? So killer application is so useful that it may justify widespread adaptation of new technology. A typical example is the killer is becoming a real. Now, if I give you an example, like as more and more military drones are developed nowadays, you can see the drones. The software that runs them may be used to bomb and destroy targets, which often include human beings. Thus, the application, I mean, we can say these drones that they use it in Iran's, and in Ukraine, Ukraine and Russian war. The both sides are using drones, to attack places like even Ukraine is attacking Moscow and, internal cities of Russia. These are like robotic flying machines, no human being controlled by software. Robotic flying machine is truly become a killer application. Now, this is the biggest killer application nowadays in recent wars that we have seen. Drones. It's becoming real now. It's always drones were there, but now it's becoming real, and it's a killer application. So that's a robotic flying machine. Now you see both sides are using these drones to destroy even the valuable places. Even you can see Russia also attacking the part of the city in Ukraine through drones and missiles. So missiles are there anyway, that these drones has become a small robotic flying machine, can even destroy a bigger ship worth of billions of dollars. So those are killer applications. I mean, killer doesn't mean that killing people only. That's something very radical applications. So both the end users who specify the new system functionality and the IT management who are overseeing the development process must approve progress toward the completion of the system at the end of the each stages that describes below on the following pages. I mean, I will discuss this, the process. The requirement of ongoing review and approval of the project is a type of implementation control. So now how do we do application development? So there are different methods, that's the popular method is one is system development life cycle, that's called SDLC. So SDLC is one of the application development methodology. The SDLC approach is a traditional methodology applied to the development of large, highly structured application systems. So where you use this SDL approach method, to develop a large, highly structured application system. The major advantage of a life cycle approach is it enhances management and control of the development process. So it has five steps. First, the system strategy that requires to understand the organization's needs. I mean, without understanding the needs, you can't develop. Now you can recall that past video that the foreign ministry, we understand the organization needs, how fast we need to attest that customers certificates. I mean, every day there are about 1,500 to 2,000 customers are coming to attest their certificates. So how fast we can do it? 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you can design, or a day or two. So how fast they want. Then you initiate the project. The process by which system proposals are assessed. So then you initiate the process. And then we say in-house development is generally chosen a unique information needs. You can do the in-house development. Or you can go for a commercial package. So you can go for a package, generally sourced for common need rather than developing a new system. I mean, if it is available in the market, you can go for it. But in that particular tent for the foreign ministry, local and foreign bidders came, but none of them doesn't have a ready-made package to resolve that problem of foreign ministry documented testing. Because it's so complex, the ready-made package will not fit it because our ministry integrations and various things are not easy. So way we do things also different. So that even us, we have to customize and stitch that application for the needs of the foreign ministry. Our document management system and a workflow system has to be customized and do a lot of development on top of that to make that this thing. So if a commercial package is available, you just plug and play. And then developing and running the system is not enough. You have to provide the maintenance and support, the service level agreements. Involves ensuring the system according changing user needs. So one is you may need to see the continuation of the support, because if every day the 1,500, 2,000 people come in to attest the document, if the system is not working, then it's a big problem. So we are doing the passport office. We know that if there's there's a problem, even our employees have to go to CID. CID come and question whether it is sabotage or normal failure. The inquiry, I mean, the Sri Lanka cert comes, everyone comes and find out where the problem, what happened, what went wrong, because these are people support. So you have to have a proper support agreement with SLAs. And not only just to support the existing thing, you have to accommodate the changing user needs. So user need might change. They want more integration with more departments. So then you have to do that. So this is a system development life cycle. These are the 5 steps that we have to do it. So now I explained that 5 steps in the video which I have showed you about documented testing methods. So maintenance and support. System strategy require understanding of the organization need, and you initiate the project and in-house development, or whether you buy a commercial package, or whether you do it in-house development or buy a commercial package, maintenance and support. Just to give you these 5 phases, explain that, the components. Initiation, feasibility, and planning. The SDLC begins with recognizing there's a need for new system, gaining the understanding of the situation to determine whether it is feasible to create a solution and formulate a plan. So create a solution and formulate a plan. So is it a requirement? Just understand, whether it is a requirement for a new system. Feasibility, you have to study initiation and feasibility plan. Then If you say yes, it's required, then we do a requirement analysis and definition. The formal proposal for a new system is submitted to the IT steering committee, describing the need for application and the business function that will affect. Then the steering committee will need to conduct the feasibility studies conducted to determine what technology the new system will require, what economic resources must be committed in the new system, how the new system will affect the current operation. Those things we looked at, the feasibility. And then the steering committee gives it go ahead for the project. So that's the stages that they go through. Okay. So let me just show you that also in a small video.
Meet Adam, an aspiring entrepreneur. He is interested in hosting an online store for home decor products like vases, curtains, artwork, and home furnishings. He requires a software application that would allow the customers to browse the available products at their fingertips and buy them online. Adam, eager to jump into his new business, wanted to understand how this software development process works. To start with his business idea, Adam meets his cousin Mark, who is a software developer and a good one at it. He pitches his idea and asks his cousin to help him design an online business application. Mark explains to Adam the way of designing the best online shopping application. We need to understand the working of the software development lifecycle, also known as the SDLC. It involves distinctive phases to initiate the software production based on the client requirements. Further, Mark briefs Adam about the 6 crucial phases of SDLC in designing any software application: planning requirements phase, requirement analysis phase, designing phase, implementation phase, testing phase, deployment and maintenance phase. The development team will commence production post agreeing on the terms and conditions discussed between the client and the development team regarding all the proceedings and requirements. Initiating the production with the planning requirements phase, where the client and the development team will discuss the basic requirements for the software, like the purpose of the application, the details about the end user of the product, key elements like format and attributes of the application for designing, and the overall user interfaces design of the software. The development moves on to the second stage, the requirement analysis phase, which includes the detailed information about each element to design the software is discussed, validating the installation of elements in the application according to the client's requirements, calibrating the security protocols, and performing risk analysis for the software application. And all the discussed details are then to be filed in the Software Requirement Specification document, also known as the SRS document. After completing the second phase, third stage of software development, the design phase, the software designers will devise the system design following the SRS document. The system design defines the overall architecture of the software and checks its feasibility with the client's requirements. All the details of the design phase are added to the design document specification, also known as the DDS document, and shared with the analyst and stakeholders for review. Next, the development moves on to the fourth stage, the coding or implementation phase. In the coding phase, the developers start writing the code using the languages they choose for the software development. The coding stage is also one of the most important phases as it encapsulates the implementation of the software product. The developers use predefined guidelines and development tools like compilers and debuggers to implement the code. The next phase of the production is where we begin with the fifth stage of software development, the testing phase. The developed software is now deployed in multiple test environments to check the functioning of all the attributes in the software architecture. After the test cases are completed, the quality assurance and the testing team may find errors or bugs in the software, which will be forwarded to the developer team for debugging. This testing and debugging process continues until the software is stable and works per the required specifications. As for the last stage in the SDLC lifecycle, the deployment and maintenance phase is initiated. With the testing phase completed, the software application is ready for deployment and consumer use. In this phase, the development team will set up links for the application and make it accessible to the users. After the deployment is completed and users begin using the application, they may encounter an error or a bug in the application, which is to be solved from time to time. Maintenance also includes releasing application updates and enhancements for the software for better performance and user experience. Adam, at this point, was surprised by all the effort and steps taken by the development team to design a software application and the key phases involved in SDLC. And on that note, here's a question for you all. What does the design document specification document include? Software code, details on defects and bugs, software architecture details, software requirements. Give it a thought and leave your answers in the comment section below. 3 lucky winners will receive Amazon gift vouchers.
Okay, so this is the process that's explained by the video. So requirement analysis, which we discussed, So then the steering committee gives a go-ahead for the project. And then you do the system design. Logical design consists of mapping the flow and storage of data elements that will be used by the new system and the new program module that will constitute the new system. Then we draw the data flow diagrams, and structured flow charts are commonly used to these steps. So some data elements may already be stored in the existing database. So good logical design ensure that they are not duplicated. Then we do the physical design, which involves planning the specific interactions of the new program code and the data elements with the hardware platform. Maybe existing or planned purchase hardware, maybe you have to purchase a new hardware on which the new system will be operated. So your new system, new software system can be deployed in the existing hardware servers, but if it is very old, then the company may purchase the new hardware servers to deploy it. The system analysts are heavily involved in these 2 steps. So then build and develop. The actual program code and the database structure that will be used in the new system are written. Hardware is acquired and physical infrastructure is assembled. Deploy this application. Then you do the testing and quality. Because without the hardware, we can't deploy a software. No? Either you have to deploy in the hardware or you have to go and deploy in a cloud service. So then you go to the testing and debugging. Debugging is a process of testing and resolving the problem. So that's called debugging. The term debug means that is performed during system development with the intent of identifying errors or defects. So whenever you do a system development, there can be errors or defects. The job of testing an iterative process, because one error is corrected, then it can eliminate other errors or even create new ones. So that's another problem. You try to eliminate the error, or that will eliminate some more errors, or sometimes it creates new errors. So testing determine whether the system is, that's what testing is important. After quality control, debugging, again, you have to do the testing to see whether they meet the requirements that guided its design and development. And you respond correctly to all kinds of inputs, perform its function with the acceptable time, achieve the general results the stakeholders desire. So this is a testing level, quality control and testing. QA department, a quality assurance department is controlling the quality. So although the number of possible tests to apply is almost limitless. So developers cannot test everything. So all testing uses strategy to select tests that are feasible for the available time and resources. So you use this called test cases. So you take some test cases and see whether the system performs for those test cases. So combinational test design identify a minimal number of tests needed to get the coverage developers want. So you will say that we are developing 15 test cases to see whether the developers has covered all that area. Those are the test cases. But that doesn't mean that you test everything by it. The following are various methods available for testing system. So one is a static testing. Now you can buy a software system. You can do the static testing to see whether the product is right. So examine the program code and its associated documentation through reviews, walkthroughs, or inspections, but does not require program to be executed. So you don't run the program in the static testing. Static means static. You take the software code and get an expert, and he go through the code and see whether the code is right. He goes through the walkthrough of the code. Then he has to be a code expert, program code sec. So he inspect, but he doesn't compile the program and run it and see whether it is running, because it's already running system is there, but he is coming to do the static testing. Because if the program code is not right, whenever you do testing, run the system, it might give errors, wrong information. Then there's another. I mean, in this testing, we don't touch the application and see whether how it operates. I mean, go back to the drawing boards and see whether the line codes are done. So the person who has done the coding company will have the codes. But that's the intellectual property, IP, because if this goes out, others also can create. So dynamic testing involves executing program codes with a given set of test cases. So that's called a dynamic testing. So dynamic testing means you don't go and test the code. Now you have a software. You create a test cases and test it. Now you said this particular test case, if they can show it, that means, okay, that's fair enough, it functions. I'll give another test case. You show it. So then till you are happy, you give some test cases and ask them to show it. The test cases. So then in the foreign ministry case, they also done the test case. I mean, they give different certificates and ask them, okay, whether you can show it, this again, how you're going to test it. So then you can do the white box testing, that test internal structures or workings of the programs as opposed to the functionalities exposed to the end user. So we don't test the functionality, but we look at the internal structure and workings of the program, how the program works. It's called a white box testing. But it doesn't try to see, how they, all the end users are comfortable, but then, just do the working program whether you test that. So then you do a black box testing. So it's like a black box. Software is like a black box, something, a box that it covers, treat the software as a black box, examining functionality without any knowledge of the source code. So in a black box means you take, okay, this is software as a black box. We don't want to see the source code. We don't have to trouble them and, ask that. We will look at the functionality. If functionality meets us, then we are okay. Then you have a gray box testing. So what you have white box, black box, and gray box. So the gray box testing involves having a knowledge of internal data structures and algorithms for purpose of designing tests while executing these tests at the user or black box level. I'll tell you now, if you have a co-banking system, sometimes you might not be able to go through the entire program code and, see whether it is right or wrong. Then you develop a co-bank. They will also not give you entire code for you to test. So static testing may not be possible. But dynamic testing is possible. You can give that co-bank event. These are the test cases. Please show us whether how we're going to do that. So you can do white box testing, ask the vendor to show us the internal structure of working of programs. You can do easily the black box because you don't have to bother the vendor. Only examine the functionality without knowledge of a source code. We don't want source code, so we don't call the vendor. You see what is the functionality, whether we can use it. In the gray box texting, then you look at the internal data structure, how it is designed and all that. If you see, okay, that's very solid structure there, come up, you can probably can say it's will work, but it may not work because of the errors that they have in the coding. Because now in this case, the gray box testing method, you don't look at the, code. You only look at the data structure and, knowledge, Okay. So
Can
these
you
are the
again explain the differences between white box, black box, and gray box?
Okay, let's go. Now every program written, they have a source code, no? You can see a source code. I mean, they don't expose that source code. A programming language,
Which
Java.
are through escrow agreements, right?
Yeah. If you have an escrow agreement, yes, they will give the source code. Okay. But that escrow agreement also, they won't give the source code. They will keep that source code in a place where if the company collapse, they can access the source code. Source code will not be given. I mean, source code will be given if you, in the contract stage, if you told the vendor, I want the source code. Now, for example, for a NTB bank, we develop these freebie, but the source code, you will be owning the source code, but we'll only develop this application. Initially,
But is this kept with a third party? Or?
No. So now let's say if you said only for me you are developing, I'm willing to pay for that. It's called stitching, no? When you stitch that software. So then you have to expose the source code to the vendor. Now let's say your bank said, no, I want this piece of development done by Epic. But I don't want that once you develop that source application, that to be give it out to anybody. Now, for example, in NDB, we have done freebie, digital banking. But then they never said, only do digital banking to us. They said, we want this requirement, digital banking. You have a digital banking product, but then, customize that into our requirement and give it to us. So we are giving the license to them, digital banking license to them to use the digital banking, but the NEOS name is a NDB name. So they can use that digital banking license. They have a license doesn't expire, but AMC has to be signed. But if they said no, that your digital banking source code, we have to give it to them after development, all that, then we can't sell that digital banking as a concept to other banks. But if they say, okay, these unique development which we have done for NTB, we can't give it to others, then we can charge for that development work for the bank and give them the source code. But normal system is you don't stitch to every software. Bank doesn't want to pay for everything. Bank said, whatever your vendors development cost should be shared with multiple customers, and then our cost will be safe. Okay. So if they have specifically developed for a customer, then that will not get saved, no? So it's like this, Now you buy Windows 11 operating system. But if you tell Microsoft, okay, I want Windows 11 operating system, the source code, everything, and it has to be only developed to me, then, your Windows license will be costing millions of dollars because that can't be given. So that's what they said, the software license. So you have the license to use it, but we don't give the code. We sell to others also the license. So that's the reason Windows 11 operating system, you can buy less than $10,000, maybe $70. because that development cost has been divided among multiple people, millions of people, so that you are not paying for everything. So that's becoming cheap. You know, you are getting only the license to use it. So you have the Windows license, you can insert and use this one. So that's called a license. Is that clear? The license?
Yeah. So would the example on Windows be a white box testing?
Yes, yes, white box testing, because you uh, not even internal structures of working of programs here. Actually, you can do only black box testing. Windows, because Windows you don't know about how the architecture is built. They don't tell you. So you can only if you get the operating system Windows 11. If it works or not, you can just test a black box. Testing. But normally, okay, forget about Windows operating system. That's not the right example because the operating system. Let's take if you get Microsoft Office. You can't do any testing, only black box testing. You can see, can I type a document? Can I print it? If I print it, does it print it as it is the document? You can use few test cases, because you don't have any knowledge of the source code, because source code, they won't give it to you. So it's a black box testing. So in this case, it's a black box testing. Windows, any application, any multinational company, software application is a black box testing because they don't give the source code. So if you buy, let's say, core banking, you can have a test cases and test it because they give core banking the user license you to use. They said this is thorough, very good product, Finacle, I mean, it's a global company, Gartner quadrants of core banking, one of the leading companies. So they said, why do you want many thousands of implementation around the world? No problem. So we don't give you coding. So you can't even ask China sometimes, what do you call even a agreement like, I don't know whether this they will allow sometimes some large companies. Yes, they allow escrow agreement. So escrow agreement is this. Okay. Now let's say if you have an application. Now let's say you buy uh, digital banking from a vendor, or let's say mobile banking, very critical application from a vendor. Now, if that vendor goes bankrupt, what will happen? You can't do any changes to that mobile application. You don't have a source code, you don't have no support. So due to some genuine reason, the company is now closing. And the employees has left, nobody knows about the source code. And even a new company acquired that company also will not have any advantage. So this is old source code. So that is the reason you can ask a escrow. So if you ask a escrow, what they do is they say, I have another company, my sister company. I keep all my software development, the source code in that company, B company. So therefore, I have my escrow already. And you can go and test any time that the source code is available. You want that. So I can go bankrupt, but that company, which is, I don't have even a shares of that company will run. Or you can say there are escrow parties in the world that they keep in their cloud the source code very securely. And they give a key, like what you get it on these, 2 keys. To download that software source code, the vendor key and the customer key both has to be intact. Then only they can download. So that escrow service provider who is held in the source code, reputed vendors are there in the world, so they charge for annually a fee for holding that, annual escrow fee you have to pay. But very simple ways there, you can take now, let's say if I am selling software to NTB Bank, you want escrow agreement. You might say if Epic Lanka go bankrupt, how can I change this application? Let's say if I sold you card management system, the critical application. All credit cards are managed by that. So then if your company collapse, how I'm going to run it? I don't have source code, I don't have support, I can't change it in a day, I'm in a problem. So then say we'll sign a escrow agreement. So then I said simply, okay, my source code of card management system, I don't give it to you because you can develop and you can not sign maintenance contract with me. And then or you might sell the source code to my competitor. That can happen. So therefore, I don't keep the source code with you because I only charge you to give the license. I never charge you amount that I'm going to develop this software only for you. Then in that case, you have a right to ask the question. You can see, no, you said, no, I can't pay billions of rupees, thousands of millions of rupees. I can't pay 500-600 million. You give me a software. That software is a common platform you customize to me, but this platform may be used by others also. Okay, that's fine. So that in that situation, you get the license. So then you said, okay, you go bankrupt.
So are you saying FreeMe is also similar to that? The platform is the same, but it's customized.
Yeah, but in FreeMe application, actually the code is owned by you. We give the code to you. But now you are not going to continue that. You abandoned that and you are going for your own mobile application. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. Because I mean the freemie is popular, very popular, but some new board or something decided they'll develop their own app, and go ahead, So then we said, okay, then we'll move out on that freemie development. So now we are not developing the freemie. You may be slowly discontinue freemie and go with your mobile app. You're not paying us anymore for freemie development. So that is a different story. It's in that situation you have the coding. You can develop if you want that part of the freemie by yourself. But if I have given a license, now let's say I give some software. For example, you think anti-money laundering. You might have bought from some vendor. They have not given the source code. They have given the license to use the anti-money laundering. So then you can do only the black box testing because the license is, only the software code is not there. But then you can sign if you want a escrow agreement. Escrow agreement is something that there are multiple escrow agreements. One escrow agreement you to give the license, but then they will ask something amount of money. Okay, if you ask for a license, then not the license, the software code, then that you can develop further and you can sell it by yourself. But then since you are paying the small amount of money, you are asking for license, and then license to use it. So I can sell this AML software to multiple banks. I have not only designed to you, I have designed, and you are now asking a quotation from me for the AML software. So I am only giving license. But then you are worried about if my company collapses, you will own the license, but you can't have any further development. So in extreme situation, if the company collapses, then you take a bank safe wallet from a third party bank, and we keep that source code in that wallet, and two keys are given. One key with the AML vendor, other key with you. In case if the company go bankrupt, they will give you the key and your key insert, and you can get the source code and get software engineers to reverse engineer the source code and see whether they can maintain with that source code and development. Are you clear or not clear? Still confused?
No, it's clear. Then gray boxes.
Okay, gray box testing means you are having a knowledge of internal structures. So they give you certain internal structures of your code. This is the way we have structured and algorithms, all that is they given. Uh, then you can create some test cases, test. And then you can see whether the software is functioning according to the algorithm and the structures. So gray box means it is not a black box, or this is not a white box also. In between color. Gray means it's like that. Black box means you don't have anything, You only can see, you can give some inputs and test what is the output, whether it is working or not. You can only test. White box means you get a lot of internal structures and working of the programs instead of functionality. In a black box, you get only the functionality. But in the white box, you get the internal program to a certain level. And then you can do a thorough test because then you know how the software codes work. Understood?
Yes.
Okay. So various testing. Now in selling a software versus selling of a good is quite different because this is like this. I will explain to you that. Now let's say how you price it. Now let's say if you're buying a wooden chair, the guy who makes a wooden chair on wood, so he can see the cost of material goes for this wooden chair, wood, and nails and stuff like that. Then his labor cost, how much time he spent to make this thing. So with that, if he has to transport this chair, that transport also you can add. So this is his cost. And now he can add the margin to this chair and you can decide the selling price. That's very simple because this is a physical chair. So physical products. But now if you take a car, you're going to build a car, the Toyota car. Now this car, if you take the cost of material goes into the car and the labor, and let's say if that has to be shipped out through a car carrier, transport, freight, and look at the cost, it's wrong. Because there is a cost for designing this car by the engineers. Designing and prototyping design. That cost need to be added. But then this car, this new model of Toyota car, they may have spent US dollars, 200 million to make this model. Design cost itself, like, design, test, all that 200 million. So then, maybe, okay, not sorry. Let's say, maybe let's say $20 million they spent. So if you add that $20 million to these cost, 20 million, then your car cost will be 20 million something, $0.5 million US dollars. Now you can't charge that everything from one customer. That's wrong. This design cost, how do you charge? You assume these cars we can send 1 million. 1 million cars we can sell. Or you might say, okay, 100,000 cars we can sell. Or 200,000. So 200,000 cars minimum we can sell. So then 20 million you divided by 200,000 cars. So then you add $1,000. So each car research and development cost, the car cost is there, then the R&D cost is US dollars 1,000. Then you add the material cost, labor cost, another US dollar 1,000 and arrive at the selling price. I mean, that makes sense.
Actually, 100.
100 or 1,000, I'm not sure. Okay, 20,000. Okay, sorry, $100. Yeah. So you end at the $100 and say because R&D cost. But if you sell anything more than 200,000 cars, this $20 million design cost now is not there. So you can make a decision whether that $100 I'm going to charge or not. So that's what I said. The cost is not an absolute thing. Cost depends. So there's no absolute cost. You can't say that's what in accounting also you say there's cost depends. I mean, when you are selling the item, you can decide, okay, whether transport cost of case, you can say, okay, it's a direct cost. What about the advertising and promotion cost? Now there's another cost, no? This model, they advertise and promotion. Who is going to charge? I mean, then I can add that also. So it's not the selling price, advertising, promotion. But then again, you have to divide by 200,000 cars, and arrive at that figure and arrive. So there's no absolute selling price. That's what in sometimes in costing, you don't say, okay, advertising and selling, and we keep it under the common cost, not as a, because then they can say, okay, some advertisement only advertise the Toyota brand, but that will, benefit all the models, not my model. How can you apportion that cost to me? They can debate it. So then to make more complex, they said, okay, no, we don't take advertising promotion. We take only the research and development lab and all that and decide on the cost. Others you keep as a common overheads, marketing, communication overheads. So that's what, it's very difficult to arrive at the real exact cost. There is no absolute cost for anything, you can decide, okay, this cost based on the activity based costing or this your portion. You study the ABC activity based costing. But sometimes you might say to do activity-based costing and apportioning that cost, it takes another a lot of administrative tasks to, find out the cost. We have to fix the electricity meters onto each flow and, calculate the electricity consumption by the flow and activities and add into that. So you decide whether what is. So that's what it's very hard, to decide on the cost. So the software also like the car, you're not developing that software for one client and then for multiple clients, then you can divide that numbers and edit and price the product. But if you are stitching a vehicle, now if let's say one of these kings in the Saudi Arabia tell Toyota, there I need a unique car for me, you can't sell it to anyone. Then they said, okay, we stitch that car for you, design that car for you. Then all the development cost I am going to charge from you because I can't use it. Then he said, I have money, no problem. I am willing to pay. And then you can put that $20 million into his car and the material and all that. He said everything has to be done in gold, gold plated. So then you do it, the car will cost you about $50 million and you give it to him. And then you have agreement that car cannot be designed and give it to anybody. So that's the difference. So when you are buying software, majority of the time it's not the case. It is like this, vendor, software vendor will sell that software to multiple people, maybe in different flavors, they'll have changed the flavor. But you are only buying for license, which makes sense. If you develop it internally in-house, then that multiplication factor will not happen. You might not be able to sell to competitors, other banks. But some companies, they make an IT department and try to offer services like Sampath IT. And a commercial bank also has an IT company. They try to do it. But I don't know how successful that is. Maybe they end up with 80, 60, 70, 80% of services provided to that same bank. But again, I have a question, whether this is the right way to do it, because Sampath IT is a limited liability company. Sampath Bank is a public company. Now, under a public company, you are keeping Sampath IT as a fully owned subsidiary, but that fully owned subsidiary accounts are limited liable. And this is a public company owning a limited liability company. Public company has a shareholders in the stock market. They don't know what Sampath IT is doing. And this is the same case of our Selinco Group. No? The Selinco Group had these listed companies, and under that Selinco Golden Key is a limited liability. Through that, they have taken out money. And that's led to the bankruptcy on, not only that, their investment company, But before that, I have seen that they are pulling out, the Kotalavalas are pulling out money from the golden key and, from the public money. So this is, I don't know, our stock market maybe not properly, the guidelines, I don't know, I strongly see by doing this, they can, maybe can lead to a lot of malpractices and things like that. If it is a listed company, under that, if you keep a fully owned limited liability companies, I don't know how you're going to audit this. I mean, it's over to you, you can correct me, you all auditors, you can tell me, is it possible or is it good practice?
I think you have a point there.
Because whatever money that's spent by Sampath IT, it's not transparent to the public, no? The public shareholders.
I think as long as they limit their operations to provide services to Sampath Bank only, then I think it's mitigated. But the moment they try to go out,
They're
as is the
providing,
case,
go out.
yeah. So we also have taken some services from them. So then only the issue comes. Yeah.
But is it, why these regulations are not there? I know Golden Key, there was a big misuse there, by the Selinco group. They keep listed some are limited liability, and they own the ball and they make it whole this thing, But the collapse is not because of that, the Golden Key, that investment company only, mishandled the fund. It's not properly managed. Okay, so these different things are there, I'm not an expert in that area to come in, but from the general public angle, I see there's a problem. I don't know how other countries, their stock markets are regulated, I haven't studied that. Probably if someone goes and put a case, how it works, keeping a limited liability company inside, and, if a shareholder when put up an issue there in the stock market, or, go to the courts and, say that I don't have transparency of that company, what they do, how they spend money, because limited liability companies, the directors can sign the checks, and that's not get audited into this. Controls are lesser. I don't know. Okay, so now this is the way license operate, So there are 4 levels of testing. You can do the unit test, refer to the test that verify, then they verify the functionality of the specific section of the code. Also, they handling the data passed between various units and subsystem components. That's called a unit test. They look at how the data pass between other subunits. Now, if you're testing, for example, SEFT. So how that SEFT data is transferred from when you do a payment to another bank, that subcomponent, so you can do that. So integration testing means the type of software testing that seeks to verify the interfaces between the component against the software design. Now we look at how if that software is integrated into other this thing like AML system, it's integrated. So then you can see the interfaces component about other system, how they extract the data, what tables they extract into it, and what time they do that. Is it after day end? Then these processes are running, and then extracting the data, and what tables they take it, and how they validate that, integration, whether integration has happened. Now, in one day, if the EOD get delayed by a one source system, then let's say you are supposed to finish the EODs by 12 o'clock in the midnight, and the AML system will take the data from the staging areas from 3 o'clock in the morning next day. So there's a 3 hours gap. So the source system will fill that data to the data warehouse staging tables, and from the staging tables, the AML system will take it. But what if your EOD in the core banking go till later than 3 o'clock? Then the staging tables are not updated with the proper table. So then when the AML system start extracting the data, they might extract the previous day data because that's not got refreshed by the new data. Then how are you going to see whether the integration is proper or not? So those type of testing you can do the integration, whether the integration working well or not. That's called integration testing. Then you do a system testing, end-to-end testing. Tests are completely integrated to verify that the system meets its requirement. You do a system thorough testing, whether you see all integrated systems are working fine. And if there is any error on the integration system, there are dashboard to show that this system is not feeding data today due to this problem. So acceptance testing means is conduct to determine whether the systems meet the organizational needs and ready for release. Acceptance. So some tenders, they said UAT test, user acceptance test. Then the users accept it. Then, there are different, I mean, not only these testing, in the commercial software, the UAT, user acceptance test. And
This
then
is one key area we test in our audits.
audit, yeah. So then you have the user acceptance test. And then after that, you do a go live. And then after go live, or sometimes before the go live, you will get a final acceptance test, FAT. And then you go to the go live. Or sometimes with the UAT, you go live because it will have that minimum features you to run, but there are certain features are not done, so the go live phase 1 after UAT. After final acceptance test, you can do the go live, final go live. So that means all other, missing features also integrated and tested in the final. So, I mean, different banks, they have different, meanings for these terms, Do you all do UAT and FAT, or you do UAT and then go live?
UAT, I think, and I don't think
UAT.
there's another final.
Test is, yeah,
Yeah.
some like BOC and all, they have a final acceptance test, because sometimes you might do a phase-wise go live, phase 1, phase 2,
Yeah.
because of
Now I think the earlier what audits involvement was, say, after about, say, once the system goes live, after about 6 months, we go and do a post-implementation review.
Okay.
But now the landscape is changing and they want us to get involved in the pre-implementation review.
Pre-implementation.
Yeah.
Okay, that's better because then you can question about audits, the what you call audit trails, basic, whether that basic audit requirements are met by the system and all that, you can do that. Because after UAT and go live, I mean, that stage is a little later stage, because everything can be fixed up at the drawing board level, not at the once you put up. Yeah, I think audit should get involved at the initial stage. Risk and audit has to involve. Then you get the acceptance, installation, and implementation, the user acceptance testing. That's what we talk about, UAT. And the final step before placing the system into the live operation. So IT must demonstrate to the users that submitted the original request that the system perform the desired functionalities. And once the users are satisfied with the new system, they acknowledge formal acceptance and implementation. So that's that you have to sign this user acceptance test by every stakeholder. The 4 strategies for converting the new systems can be used, like you can do a parallel operation. Let's say if you have an existing system, but you can't cut off, you have to see first few days, few weeks parallel operation. The old and new system both are run at full capacity for a given period. And you check whether the figures that comes on the new system and the figures comes on the old system tally. Now, let's say if you have a wealth management and custodial solution, I'm doing these days implementation for wealth management and custodian for Bank of Ceylon. But there's no parallel operation because earlier they were doing in manual in Excel. So I don't have that problem of parallel. But some cases we have some customers, they are already, let's say, they are running a card management system, CMS, but they want to implement our new card management system. But then they wanted to see whether they can run some parallel and, but then there are a lot of work for users to run. Let's say if we do even a core banking system, you might sometimes run parallelly for a couple of days to make sure that everything gives the right result. But that's a very cumbersome process, running parallel. Fully fledged parallel operation is difficult, but some selected branch you can probably do it. So this strategy is the safest. I mean, if you run parallel and see the results are coming safest, the old system is still producing output because the new system have a major problem. So sometimes you run the parallel because there are problems in the new system, but you want to see where the problems and fix it. That also can't do it unless you run parallel. But it's the most expensive and time-consuming method, parallel run. With direct change job, you set up the cutoff date for conversion. The old system is shut down and the new system take place for processing advanced. So this is the least expensive and less time-consuming strategy. But it also very riskiest because new system cannot be reverted to the original system when you do a direct cutoff. You tell them this date. I mean, I can remember when Sampath Bank, their Finacle new implementation, when they cut off and say next Monday onwards, we have the latest version of Finacle. And then users start using it. Probably they had about few thousand user logins. I can't remember exactly the license. But now because of the new system in the Monday, everyone started logging in. So the concurrent license limit has passed. Then some branches, real counter users can't log in into the system because others also back-end people try to log in with the core banking and see whether how the new systems look like, because when they announce. So these are the some certain things sometimes the project managers can't, even think about it. Okay, let's say you have 1,500 license, but the bank has about 4,000 or 3,000 employees. Now, concurrent license of 1,500, let's say. Only 1,500 can even log in at any given time. That's sufficient for tellers, that may not have that many tellers in the branches. So, but let's say back-end people also logging in to see the new system. Then the front-end tellers may have to log out other person to log in. So that problem happened in Sampath Bank when they change over to the new core banking system of Finacle latest version. So these things can happen, direct cutoff. This is the least expensive, but this is the less expensive because you are not run parallel. Under pilot conversion, one branch, department, or division at a time is fully converted to an system. So that's called a pilot conversion. So experience gained from each installation is used to benefit for the next. One disadvantage of this strategy is extension of conversion time. So in some cases, you do a phase conversion. Under this strategy, one function of the new system at a time you place in operation. Let's say this is good if you don't have any system. Like for example, wealth management, what we're doing, we have two phases. The first phase, all the major things we are doing it. Second phase, there are minor like icing stuff we'll do it. Because then they can start the operation straight away. You can do it these things for like cash management system. If you don't have a cash management system to manage the corporate accounts, when you have a SBU clients, the clients with multiple SBUs, the CFO need to do cash management, pull cash from one account and put it to other and see how the cash moves. So then such system, okay, you can do a phase out. Okay, certain features were given in the phase 1, others are given in phase 2. So advantage is that strategy is allowing users to learn one part of the system at a time, phase approach. So, okay, how long it will take now? I have to just stop. 9:30 now. We'll stop here now for today.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll take off on the next day. So thank you very much and have a good weekend, for tomorrow and day.
Yeah, you too. Good
Okay.
night.
Good night. Yes. Good night, Rashmi. Good night. Yes.